Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Peak Human. I'm Brian Sanders. Thanks for listening. Thanks for sharing with a friend. And make sure you go back and listen to the old episodes. So many great ones. I don't do a lot of interviews. I try to keep them very high quality. Sometimes I only interview these guests once. And so you have to go back and find them. I'm not going to interview them again. I go for quality over quantity. And if I don't put one out each week, you need to go back and listen to the old ones, catch up on all of them. So many people message me that they listen to them all. They start from episode 1. They learned so much. They changed their life. They say it's like a free college course or nutrition curriculum. It's great stuff. Go back, listen to the old ones. Give this podcast a review on iTunes. Support it on Patreon. I don't talk about that much, but need your support in any way possible. Go to sapien.org. You can get the newsletter. You can join the tribe. You can get the show notes. We have a private website. We do Zoom calls. That's one way to support. You can be part of the tribe. You can be part of the Patreon, patreon.com/peakhuman. Or you could go to Nose to Tail. You could support the company, support the ranchers. That's why we don't have advertisers, because we're trying to do this on our own, just through Patreon, the Sapien Tribe, or Nose to Tail. If you buy meat from us, it supports the ranchers, it supports their families, it supports the land because they're doing great management practices, and it supports me and my small company. Please pick one of these options. We need your support. This stuff takes a long time. I do all of this stuff for free. I hate doing marketing. I hate asking for money. I hate all this stuff. I just want to do the content and I want to make this film, Food Lies, but I also need to pay the bills. I need to pay rent. So you can find us at nosetotail.org. We got our pig harvest. We just harvested a bunch of pigs. We raised them on a low PUFA diet, no corn, no soy, organic feed, low PUFA. They are not eating a lot of PUFA at all, bare minimum. They're also getting some leftover fruit and some leftover milk, super healthy stuff. These are the best pig. These are the best hogs you can get. We are raising them outdoors, pasture raised, moving them around the land, small family ranch. Really got to try this stuff. Most pork is raised terribly. They're in feedlots. They're in these giant barns. They're fed terrible diets. That's why pork gets a bad rap, I think. Because yes, it's not raised well, it has high PUFA. The fat content isn't great. Ours is the opposite. So please check it out. Nosetotail.org. We got the pork back in stock. We also got the primal ground beef. We got all the organs mixed into there. And with the bison too. We got primal bison, primal lamb. Man, this stuff is good. Best way to get your organs. You don't even know you're eating them. It just tastes like great beef, rich, flavorful beef, rich, flavorful bison, lamb, getting all those nutrients. So make a box at nosetotail.org. We're shipping them out to you. We also got the biltong, the livervores, the drovores. These are the dried meats, air dried, super good, no curing agents, no sugar. You can add those to your box, and the body care too. We got the skin food in stock. We got the soap. Tommy's making the handmade soap, the lip balm even. Telling you this stuff is amazing. Even the seasonings, using the seasonings every day. We got the whole family of products here. Put them on the nose to tail meat. Put the body care on your body. We've got you covered, nose to tail. That's the whole idea. So on to the episode today with Dr. Connealy. This is part 2. She was so great. We didn't have enough time on the first one. She went on a bit of a rant because we had some issues and we didn't have much time. So she kind of went on a diatribe and just did a monologue. And some people were like, hey, this wasn't a discussion. Yeah, it's all good. She just was trying to get a bunch of info out in the limited time we had. But now we have more time. We had more of a discussion. We came back for round 2. Check this one out. And again, check Dr. Connealy out on her Instagram, ConnealyMD. Watch all her doctors eat the great meals, whole foods, animal foods. She's all about it, and so is her team. A little bit more about her. Leigh Erin Connealy, MD, is a prominent leader in the integrative and functional medicine medical field. She is the medical director of 2 amazing clinics, the Cancer Center for Healing and the Center for New Medicine. The clinics have become the largest integrative medical clinic in North America and visited by patients from all over the world, with 47,000 patients and growing. She's authored 2 books, including The Cancer Revolution, and was named one of the top 50 functional and integrative doctors in the country in 2017. Check out her site, ConnealyMD.com. So again, nosetotail.org. Support our ranchers. Support them supporting the land. Go to sapien.org. Join the newsletter. I don't trust social media these days or YouTube. Feel like I'm going to get banned soon. I'd rather go direct to you. go to sapien.org, join the newsletter. We send out 1 email a week, just some valuable content, my rant for the week, and that's about it. So nosetotale.org, sapien.org. Enjoy this one with Dr. Connealy, and I'll see you next week. And we're back for round 2. Dr. Connealy, how's it going?
Great.
All right. So we had to split this one up. You're busy seeing patients. How's it been for the last 2 weeks? It's been 1 week. What's going on? Maybe give us a little picture of what goes on in your clinic.
Yeah, well, I think it's interesting. What I've noticed in the last, I think, year, that there's just been an enormous increase in young people with cancer. And I mean, yesterday I had a 31-year-old girl, local in Los Angeles, who's triple negative, which is the worst cancer, breast cancer, worst prognosis. Her Ki-67, so Ki-67 is the proliferative index of a pathology. And so every breast cancer patient should know the Ki-67. It's on the pathology report. And her Ki-67 was 75%. So that's very high. Favorable would be less than 10%. And it's interesting when I see patients and I go over their pathology report, the doctors never really talked about it. Some of them do, some of them don't. So it's about 50-50. So I think the patient needs to be educated on everything. It's their life. It's their knowledge, it's their understanding, and they'll take better care of themselves with the more information and education. Okay. So I believe that all the patients need to be educated on a regular basis. That's why we have our cancer conversation. That's why we have so much invaluable information trying to constantly teach the patients. And so the Ki-67 is how rapidly dividing the cancer is. So obviously, the more rapidly dividing, the more aggressive it is. So that's the Ki-67 for anyone listening. But what I'm alarmed at is, okay, so let's talk about screening, okay? So what kind of screening is there for cancer? We know it's 1 in 2 people and expected to grow 30% in the next 5 years, all right? So what kind of screening is there, okay? So if you're a man, there's no screening until a colonoscopy at 45. So the new standard is colonoscopy at 45. Other than that, there's no screening for a man, right? You start doing PSAs. I do them early. When I say early, around 40. And the reason is I want to see the change. I don't use PSA as the end all. I use it as what is your baseline. And so if you went from 1 to 2, then I would go, oh, we have a problem. And I had a patient who's been my patient for 30 years. He only came to see me once a year. And I did complete physical exam and all of his blood work. And his PSA had always been 1 and it went to 2. Now the normal range is 0 to 4. But the inventor of PSA says never use this test for cancer screening. So I always use it as the change. So it doubled in 1 year. So I go, oh, something's not right. Sure enough, I ordered the imaging and everything, and it was prostate cancer. So just because the lab, if you went to a regular doctor, they would have said, oh, you're fine. Well, not in this clinic, that's not. We want to verify that you're fine. So anyway, I did the imaging. I did a color Doppler ultrasound, which is an imaging of the prostate. It's non-invasive. It's not toxic. There's no gadolinium. The doctor can look at the ultrasound of the prostate beautifully and say, oh, at 1 o'clock, there is a 7 millimeter area. Instead, typically, when a man gets a prostate biopsy, the doctor goes in blindly through a cystoscopy and takes pieces. They will take 15 pieces, 18 pieces. So every poke is an injury. And the prostate's not that big. So I always tell people, imagine taking seeds out of a strawberry. It's very, very, very difficult. So I always tell people, let's be preventive and protective about our procedure, what we're going to do. And so I will have them do a color Doppler or an MRI. And MRI, the problem with MRIs is that you use gadolinium. Well, gadolinium is a metal that can be toxic. So they use, not for all MRIs, but they use MRIs if you do prostate or the body, not bone. Bone, they don't use dye. Then they will have gadolinium, and gadolinium can bioaccumulate and be toxic. So you got to make sure that you detoxify the gadolinium if you order an MRI. Do you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so, so there's all these little, really supportive measures as physicians that we can do to protect our patient through their healing journey. And, but what I'm most concerned, so I talked about a male. So at 45, you get a colonoscopy or Cologuard. I don't know if you've ever heard of Cologuard. Cologuard is a non-invasive stool test. I love it. It's so accurate because it's non-invasive. The patient does at home. They don't have to go see a doctor. They don't have to get invasive procedures. They don't have to risk complications. So Cologuard. So because, and why did they change it from 50? They changed it from 50 to 45 because there was an alarming increase in 30-year-olds with colon cancer. So I'm like, well, you're missing all those young people then. So we have to, like I said, do some of these preventive screenings. I think starting, probably now what I'm seeing, probably around 25, because the amount of young people less than 40, I would say over 50%. I could do an evaluation and see, but minimum 50% are young men and young women getting cancer. So the young people are the canaries in the mines. It's just like autism. Autism, I didn't even learn about in medical school. I mean, there was one little paragraph. Well, now there's libraries on autism, okay? And it's one in, looking at different people. Some people say it's one in 36, 38. Anyway, it's too much, okay? So the children are the canaries in the mine telling us, the babies are saying, wait, something's not right, because when I grew up, no one had autism, okay? So we have to say, we need to all stop, look, listen, and say, what is happening? We all have to have an intense awareness of what's going on with our human community, because if our human community isn't good, then our whole country isn't good. And so I'm such a believer in being preventive and proactive and precise about our healthcare today, because our healthcare, I tell people, if our paradigm is working, why is everybody sick? Why are there 10 prescriptions written per man, woman, and child? Why is all 20-year-olds on antidepressants and Adderall? I mean, that's not okay, all right? So there is a natural alternative for everything, right? And now, granted, there are, extenuating circumstances where you're going to need medications, okay? There's no doubt about that. But we need to make a decision based upon, the clinical evaluation and the need, and then how do we get the patient off? And so, so I think that now, like women, for women, they get a pap smear, right? And then they don't get breast imaging sometime between 35 and 40, but they only get a mammogram. Well, a mammogram, see, the original breast imaging was thermography. Okay, thermography has a very, very long history. What is thermography? Thermography is a thermal vascular image of the breast. So for breast imaging, mammogram, so a chest x-ray is 1 millirad, but a mammogram is 343 millirads. So it's radiation. So they say if you do the consistent mammograms as scheduled, you're going to increase your risk of cancer. So we need to be doing these other testing. So ultrasound is non-invasive, non-injurious, looks at lumps and bumps. Mammogram looks at calcifications. Thermography looks at the vascularity, the thermal, the temperature change in the breast. And so cancer is a vascular picture. And so you can actually see, because in the breast, there's not normally vascularity. So when you see vascularity, you know something is brewing, simmering, fermenting. And so, and there's no danger. All you do is have the patient stand in the room, you take a picture, never touch them or anything, and it shows you some valuable information.
Well, what do you think are the biggest causes of breast cancer?
Well, I do a very thorough analysis of patients. Like, okay, so like, let's take the patient I had yesterday, triple negative. And so one of the things before I go into that is breast self-exams. Every woman knows their breast, so they should do breast self-exams every month on their breast and underneath their arms, okay? Because your lymph glands are underneath your arms. So they should be doing that every month. So it's what this lady that triple negative, 31. So I said, okay, how did you find this? And so forth and so on. And she has families that are physicians. So they told her, immediately go and get this and so forth. So she got a workup very quickly. So then I said, okay, so how much are you sleeping? All right. And so, because people don't understand the restorative aspect of sleep. Mm-hmm. So, and I would say about 50% of the population, young and old, don't sleep. So if you don't sleep, then it's going to have like wear and tear on your body. So a lot of people are not sleeping. Okay. They don't have restful, peaceful sleep. They don't honor their circadian rhythm, and they just don't establish that order that you have to have. Then water. You got to drink purified water. So I go over how much water they're drinking. Do they have a purification system? Then I go over their eating. Now, most of the time, I would say 99.9% of the time, when a patient is diagnosed with cancer, what is one of the first things they change? What they put in their mouth. Mm-hmm. So they become mindful of their eating. Mm-hmm. So they get off sugar, they get off junk food. So they knew that before, but their subconscious was getting them and allowing them to indulge in things that aren't going to serve them well.
So what percentage of the normal public eats junk food, like eats those bad foods?
I would say most people.
That's what I mean, it seems like almost everyone. There's like a 1 to 3% out there that is mindful of that, but usually those are people who already got diagnosed with something,
Right. And so I would say there was an article written that 95% of people are metabolically unhealthy.
Yep.
Okay, that's crazy. Okay. And it's so sad because, Brian, it can be turned around like that. Right? Mm-hmm. It can be turned around with just education. There's so much information and education out there now that there's no reason why we are not really making this transformation in people. I do know that with like what the work you're doing, the work I'm doing, the work that other people are doing, they are making incredible changes in people's lives. So it is happening. It's just, it needs to be more contagious. All right. That's what I always say. It needs to be a contagious movement. And then I always ask people about their movement. Since exercise for people is a bad word, mm-hmm. I use movement.
Yeah.
I always tell people 800 muscles, you must move every day. You don't have to run marathons. You don't have to be a triathlete, but you've got to move. And people are very sedentary because they're on their computer or they're watching TV or they're on their phone. And they don't think of movement, how great that is. So I tell people, enjoy washing dishes, enjoy washing clothes, every kind of movement, because 100 years ago, people didn't exercise. They just moved all the time. Okay. And so they were working, and they slept 10 hours because they moved all the time. And so we've got to move. That's what mobilizes our lymphatic system. Our lymphatic system is 4 times greater than our blood circulation. And our lymphatic circulation doesn't have little valves in it to propel it. So your movement propels the lymphatic system. What does your lymphatic system do? Removes garbage. That's why we use lymphatic therapy on every single patient that comes in here. They all get lymphatic therapy. We also tell them how to do things at home with a rebounder or jump rope or, skin brushing and stuff like that. So, and then if these patients are going through chemo and everything, you have to be delicate because some people, she had hardcore with triple negative, you go hardcore with the chemo conventional because she's young, high Ki-67. So we have to go hardcore. So what we do at our clinic though, is we have them do all these other things so they can do the chemo. Now, she saw me after she had already done chemo. So she's actually scheduled for surgery this week, but she's sick. And so she may have the surgery canceled and put off a week. She got a cold and a fever and a flu. Anyway, so then I asked them, what has been your stress for the past 10 years? So from one cancer cell to tumor is you see cancer on imaging. All right. So I tell people, so I go back 10 years. What's been your life for the last 10 years? Tell me about your stress that you've experienced. So then every patient, well, I'm a CEO of a business and I have been working 80 hours a week. I, have a family member who's been sick and I'm taking care of them. I've had lots of death in my family. I've had a very, very sick child. Whatever it is, they have a list of things that they've been stressed about. And it's been, unrelenting. Okay.
It's not like, oh, I surf. I live in Hawaii and I just surf all day.
Right. Exactly. And so then I go, okay. And then just getting diagnosed is traumatic.
Mm-hmm.
So then we have to deal with the trauma of just the diagnosis. Okay. And the fear of the diagnosis. So I always recommend that we immediately do emotional work, which for all of our patients, they say it's the most life-changing thing because we live in our subconscious. 95% of us live daily in our subconscious. So whatever the recordings we had in utero to where you are today, lots of information. There's a great book, Your Body Keeps Score. And you have been conditioned whatever way from your parents, grandparents, whoever it was in your life. And if it wasn't this beautiful, supportive, loving, harmonious, information going to you, okay, then, you're going to have these recordings of like, I'm not worthy enough, I'm not good enough, I've been abandoned, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so, so that's like critical. So you can see all the things they have to address once they get diagnosed. So I don't try to fix everything today. I just say, okay, so we're going to start with this. And I tell people from the time they start with me, it takes 1 year because they've got to learn how to create a living, healthy sanctuary at home with the right water, the right food, the right, air, et cetera. Okay.
Yeah.
Learning how to ground on a regular basis, right? All these things. And what kind of pots and pans, not to use plastic. I mean, goes on and on and on. And so, and I have a book that I've written before that outlines all these things. And so they've got to, but people can usually only handle a little bit at a time. To make the transformation doesn't happen overnight.
Well, it's completely going against everything they've learned. And I don't want to repeat too much from the last time, but I don't know if I ever get to really just talk about how bad the society is designed. We talked, all these problems, right? And you were kind of laying them all out again. All these problems.
It's like society is designed to make people just buy cheap food, not move, sit inside all day. All this stuff is almost design. I don't know, designs can be used in different words. It's like the marketing and all these corporations that want to sell their products kind of design it, and it could even go deeper than that of design. And
That's
it's
true. Well, they
brilliant.
get together and how to create things addicting. You're right.
Yeah.
And
And so
it's,
yeah, you have to unlearn all this stuff, and it's insane.
yeah, it is insane. And that's why we all have to fight for what is going to serve us best, all of us, no matter what. And not everybody wants to learn and do it. So, life is you get what you put in. I always use the analogy with my patients, I expect you to be a Navy SEAL with your health. And
Mm,
if you want to get well, we need to really follow, not perfection. Okay. Let's say you can't exercise a day or two. Okay. You'll
mhm.
exercise the next day. Okay.
Yeah.
We can't put these unreasonable pressures on ourselves because that's counterproductive. All right. And then if you don't eat perfectly every day, okay, then give yourself a break. Okay.
Yeah. Don't stress out about it too much, or then it could make it worse.
Exactly. Right. And so we have to get our stress under control. So we usually have all of our patients we give them a list of healing affirmations.
Mm,
So those healing affirmations they say 3 times a day to yourself. And then we have them do the emotional work. We usually have them do meditation, at least 15 minutes of quietness, like get off your phone, get off TVs, get off all of that. Just lay in your bed, living room, wherever you want to find a beautiful place and just meditate. We know how for years and years and years the benefits of meditation. So I tell people meditation is medication.
mm.
And so we need to help them because and I tell people, I remember years ago I went to go to Deepak Chopra's clinic years ago. I mean, it must have been 25 years ago. And so I said, okay, I'm just going to go through the whole program and spend a day. And so they did a meditation. The doctor and I did a meditation together. And I was like, okay, the average person is not going to do this. So I said, how can I Americanize or whatever
Mhm.
meditation? So now the beauty is we have all these meditation apps. Okay. One of
Yeah.
my favorite is Insight Timer, but I've listened to many of them, so I
Mhm.
kind of see there's Solfeggio frequencies. There's all kinds of different meditation that patients can do, and they just need to find something that resonates with them and what they like to do. And all they have to do is sit and or lay down and receive.
Mhm.
And
That's yeah.
yeah, so anyway, so we slowly get them where they need to be because the stress is such a huge thing for everyone. Okay, none of us are exempt from that with
For
the
heart
demand.
disease too. You're talking about cancer, but stress and heart disease is huge.
Yeah, stress stress is probably, I mean, pretty much everyone says stress is your number one problem.
Mm.
That's what the studies really
Mhm.
show. Okay, we say heart disease and cancer, but stress is kind of trumps the influence of those
Mm.
diseases.
Mhm.
And so we have to, and so we live in this world. If you think how people live, like you said, companies are making things, doing things, producing things that are one, really not healthy for us. But number two, it's addicting. And number three, it's convenient and easy. But I always tell people there's nothing easy in life, nothing. Okay. And the human body of 50 trillion cells, you're living in a miracle. We have to respect that miracle and steward the body every day. And the way we lived literally, 60, 70 years ago was really way easier. And we've, robotized and we're with the industrialization and technology of the world, it's made people obviously very unhealthy.
Yeah, no, that kind of hurts people's heads, I think, when you say it's easier back in the day, because I agree with that. Because we didn't have all of this distraction and technology and different work hours and this and that. I mean, it seemed harder because like, oh, you had to wash your own dishes. I'm like, yeah, it's not you like you said, that's movement. You get to wash your dishes. That's not a huge problem. And then if you go even further back, I talked to a lot of paleoanthropologists and these people looking back. They say we had an easy time, like 50,000 years ago, paleo time. We could get food. We knew so much about the land. We weren't stressed out. I'm not saying we can just go back to that lifestyle, but like we had it pretty stress-free, comfortable lifestyle because it was simpler. We did all the things that made us human, which is just getting outdoors and everything you just listed, drinking clean water, eating clean food, and life was great.
Right. No, life was great because I know because I grew up in Texas and we slept outside. We would build forts with grocery store crates and a sheet and caught lightning bugs. And we did that on a regular basis. At Christmas time, we collected Christmas tree forts. So we were immersed in nature all the time. And then fortunately, my mother was super health oriented. We had our own cows from our farm. And so we would butcher a whole cow and have it in our deep freeze. Okay. And then my mom would make liver pate and liver and onions, sauerkraut, tongue, Bigsby, all kind of stuff. Okay. So luckily I grew up with that, but life was, the distractions weren't there. Well, first of all, we didn't have cell phones. So cell phones are, a dopamine surge every time. Okay. The text, the email and everything. And we have to say like, no, like, we need to chill, and people need to learn to live. I know when I examine a young person, they always get on the exam table with their phone.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, so I said, okay, I'm going to set your phone over here so I can examine you. But it's like an appendage. Well, now we're seeing how the cell phone affects our physiology and the functionality of our organs. And so whether they wear it in their back pocket, whether they wear it in the front, affecting the sperm and or ovaries. And so we now know that that is something that we need to be cautious of. And I tell people, don't wear your phone, okay? You can buy little Faraday, a male can even carry a little Faraday cage and put it in there, slip it in their pocket. It's very thin. And a woman can carry a little bag. They make these special little bags that it's a Faraday cage. So you're carrying it around, but it's not close to your body. And because a Faraday cage prevents it blocks it. Yes. So there's all these little counter things you can do to live in this modern world. Okay. Because I do have a cell phone. I'd never wear my cell phone, though. I don't sleep with my cell phone. I turn my phone off at night. I turn off my electricity at night. I mean, I'm pretty extreme because.
A lot of people do stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. I've done lots of different conversations with people, and you're right. They're doing the same thing. So once you learn about it, and there's a lot of naysayers and say, oh, EMS don't do anything and so forth. Well, no, the science is out there. And I tell people, even if it's 10% true, we need to err on the side of the precautionary principle in science. And so I always tell people, we know for the last 100 years, we are an energy field, and every one of our cells is its own sentient being, and it's emanating energy. So if we use computers, cell phones, etc., then it's affecting the bioenergetics of that cell. So we need to be free flowing with this beautiful energy, because energy is everything. Okay. Now I know they talk about ATP and the Krebs cycle, which we talked about last time, but there's this energy that is beyond that, Brian. Okay. And they know it, they've seen it, it's published in Nature, it's the quantum field, and it's invisible. So people, if they don't see it, just like I tell people, well, we didn't see the air, there's air here, but we don't see it, okay? So it's invisible, just like the invisible, electrical field that we all have around us. But I do think that is playing a big role in the trajectory of health today.
Yeah. And so there's little things you can do to mitigate that. Also with the distractions and the dopamine you talked about, you can put your phone on do not disturb all day. you can turn off Instagram notifications, which I started doing. It was kind of fun to have on the notifications because I was getting that dopamine. And then I also like to see, oh, is this post, you can see it's like, oh, this post is popular, it's doing well because I see a lot, or it's, oh, this wasn't so good. I'm like, who cares? Who cares? Just
Right.
turn off the notifications. But yeah, there's so many little things you can do. I kind of focus on the big things, but I'm glad we're getting into some of these other things because I've seen so much change when people just change their diet. It's like you can get just a little bit of movement in your life, a little bit of diet change, sleep better, and you can be 80% of the way there. But
That's
we need better than that, right? Like there's plastics everywhere infiltrating us. There's like, all these little decisions you're talking about add up. And even if it's only 10%, it's like, well, I don't want to use plastic. People are like, everyone I know is like, yeah, of course not. We use glass. But some people are like, oh, well, what is that going to do? I'm like, well, it adds up. Look, and there are studies. You've seen all these studies. It's like there's so many things with the phthalates and the BPA and the different like PFAS. All this stuff is everywhere in our society. Even receipt. I don't get the receipt. Don't give me that
I
receipt.
don't either. I
Don't.
do the same
I'm not
thing.
touching that.
Yeah, exactly. I don't even do that because you're right. People just don't know. And what's so sad is we are not notifying people about, like you and I are, but everybody should be notifying how to protect yourself. And a company that's coming out, whether it's a smart reader, whether it's the receipt, whether it's the plastic water bottle. I mean, as a owner of a company, you should be saying this can be hazardous to your health. Okay, just like they have on cigarette smoking.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So but we're not allowed to be giving that information. Okay, and we should be. The corporations are like trying to, Nabisco won't do well if we show all the chemicals in the food. Okay, and the dyes, but it's absolutely your ethical responsibility to let people know what is not good for them and harmful for them.
Mm.
And so, but we're not doing that. And
We're
we
not.
should be concerned about our fellow man.
I want to do. I brought this up a couple times. This is my favorite post I made. It says 90 calories sells a lot better than 30 ingredients. Convincing the world to count calories instead of ingredients is the most profitable scheme in history. And I'll add most damaging thing in history. Just admit, yeah, they advertise 90 calories. Ooh, this has 90 calories. Like
Right.
that matters. That doesn't matter at all to me. That's just, well, that's not very filling because it only has 90 calories. You know what I mean? Like calories mean nothing to me. But the fact that it has 30 ingredients means everything. And they're hiding that.
Exactly. They're hiding it. And then, as you know, if it's too small of amount, they don't have to put it on the label.
Yep.
So, so we're not getting every single thing that could possibly be in that
Trans
food.
fat. Yeah, trans fat. You can still have like a certain amount of trans fat and not say you have trans fat.
Exactly, correct. And the PUFAs and the forever chemicals and everything. But I tell people, we know one thing is bad, but if you put this synergistic potential daily of heavy metals, pharmaceuticals in the water, all the chemicals you talk about. So there's over 200 different things we're ingesting every day. And, we can't do a forensic analysis. Probably in the future, they'll be able to forensic analysis.
Mhm.
You'll be able to, exactly analyze, what's in the food and know, okay. And it's going to hold companies accountable.
Mhm.
But at now you've got to stick to nature. That's the bottom line, like you said, what people did for hundreds of thousands of years. All right. They were
Mhm.
hunter gatherers. And then whatever you buy today, because I have to say there are companies who are making great products. Okay. If you go to the Natural Products Expo here in Anaheim, I mean, the creation of amazing, wonderful, great food is amazing. Okay.
Mhm.
So there are good companies. All right. We all have to seek them out and put our dollar with the
Mhm.
things that are going to service, and the company is ethical and they care about the outcome to the person ingesting the
Mm.
substance.
Are you talking about Nose to Tail, my company? No. Yeah. No, we do that. Yeah, we sell like very simple whole foods, basically good meat, good stuff like that. I want to talk about you and meat and growing up. You mentioned it, how you raised, yeah, just eating the whole animal. That is amazing. But I know we brought up in the first one, but we didn't go into it more. that your doctors, I don't know if it was a certain, it was like your higher level team shows what they eat on Instagram, and I thought it was so cool because I've never seen that where everyone was eating just real foods, everyone was doing it well, and it wasn't just like, "Oh, well, we're plant-based and I have this salad." It was like, "Hey, we got steak and we got some sweet potatoes," and, it was amazing. I loved it. So tell me a little more about, well, and even your background too, because you can go in. I'm 4 minutes from UT. I know that you went to UT for public health, and then you
Right.
got your MD, I guess.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and so people, food has been unfortunately bastardized because I would say, when, gosh, 100 years ago, with okay, cereal, and then it's this packaged food and this Dorito and this donut and everything, okay, which will not serve you one bit, all right.
Mm.
And so I know growing up in Texas, people ate bologna sandwiches with Miracle Whip, which is
Mm.
that sweet mayonnaise, all right. So it's been around, but before that, people were hunter gatherers. They ate meat, they ate fruits, they ate roots, and they ate veggies. That's how they ate and made their own butter. If they had bread, they made it themselves,
Mhm.
okay, with a grain that wasn't, has not been, changed. All
Mhm.
right. Today, the wheat is not what it was 100 years ago. Okay. Now everybody has a gluten allergy because it's changed. Okay. The
Mhm.
wheat is not what it was. Okay. Because everyone will say, oh, I went to Europe for 2 weeks. I was able to eat everything and I lost weight and,
Mhm.
I felt great because they don't use what we use here.
Oh, and the glyphosate too. It's like, yeah, it's not only different
Yes.
kind of grain. There's different in like 5 ways. So yes.
You're right. So, and then you talk about, like you said, glyphosate and all the chemicals. But I fortunately, we never had cereal in our house. Okay,
Mm.
that was never ever an option. So we all, as a family, because there were 6 kids, we all cooked, and my parents cooked breakfast, and we had eggs, and we had deer sausage, and we had bacon, but it was all really, natural, good stuff.
Mhm.
Okay, and so, and then if we had bread too, it was really good bread, okay? Because my mother cooked and my dad cooked too. We all cooked, and then, she taught us all how to cook. All of us know how to cook today, all right? And then we never used school lunches. My mother didn't allow us to go to school
Mm.
and buy school
Love
lunches
it.
and drink chocolate milk. Okay, we used wax paper bags and paper. So we didn't use plastic and Ziploc or anything.
Mm.
Even with my own children, I repeated the same thing I was taught to
Mm.
my children. And we sat down, had breakfast. We had our time together in the morning, and they ate a real food breakfast. Okay. And then at lunch, same thing. I made their lunches, okay, and I would make all kinds of different things, all right, and
But
they
you're a doctor. You have no time. How did you do this all?
well, I you have to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning,
Mhm.
and you got to get organized. I mean, you have to be really organized
Mhm.
with everything. You have to be really organized. When you make baby food, you're just pureeing food
Mhm.
that you make, so that's nothing, all right. But when they went to school, but the kids help. I taught the kids how to
Mm.
help too. All
I
right.
love
You
it.
got to teach them. And we drank a green juice, every morning along with their breakfast. And I did different breakfasts. I'd make oatmeal and they would put butter in the oatmeal and have cottage cheese or eggs or turkey sausage. Okay.
Mm.
So, because you want to have a glycemic index low. So, if you eat protein,
Mm.
fat, and a favorable carb, you
Yeah.
won't have the spikes in insulin. All right.
Yeah.
So I would every morning create a breakfast without high sugar because the average kids eat cereal, okay, which is 100% sugar. So your insulin spikes, okay.
No
Then they get
protein.
a what?
Without protein or fat, really?
Exactly. No protein and fat. So every meal had a protein, fat, and a
Mm.
good carb. And so all the time. And then at dinner, we did the same thing. We got all involved. I didn't have anything fancy dinners, but we made a salad, and then we always had a protein. It was a lamb, it's steak, We didn't eat a lot of fish, but we had chicken. So I would rotate turkey. I'd rotate different proteins so nobody got bored. And we that's the way we did it. I mean, like that's how my kids grew up. And today they're exactly like that. They're very well. I have one child that is, I would say, completely carnivore, and she is because she was working at Twitter, and she learned about she had excess oxalates. And so she checked her oxalate levels and did all this research. And so now, she can't eat. If she eats it, she gets irritation of her urinary tract. And so, and a lot of people now today, you can actually check people's excess oxalates. So I do a blood test called the NutriEval, and it actually will tell me, obviously it checks all your nutrients. Do you have malabsorption? Do you have omegas? What is your gut like? What's your toxins like? What's your heavy metals and what's your minerals? It's a 23-page test of everything, very inexpensive. I think I mentioned it last time. It's covered by most insurance companies and Medicare. So there's no reason not to do this, okay? And so it will tell me if you have an oxalate overload, all right? So those people, I mean, if you talk to those people, it's life-changing once they get off oxalates, which is in high volume in a lot of like spinach, vegetables, and everything.
I did a whole episode on it. I just want to point it out. Sally Norton,
Yes.
she's all about it. And yeah, I had a problem with oxalates. I was doing all the spinach and kale shakes and stuff for too long, too many days in a row. So yeah, I just got off all of that. It's amazing. So much.
It is amazing. It's life-changing.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, people get caught up in the green juice. So I mean, I know you mentioned green juice. It could be there's good and bad versions.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, you don't want to just be stuffing 100 spinach leaves every day.
Right.
And you this isn't natural. This is not like what humans did. We didn't eat 100 spinach leaves every day. We didn't have it. Like maybe
Right.
like you can eat oxalate foods if you only eat them for the 1 or 2 months that they're available, and then you don't eat them all year, and your
That's
body can naturally get rid of them.
Right. And that's a good point because you need to eat foods in seasons. My mother was always big on that. You eat what's available, not anything else. You don't buy strawberries on the opposite time of when they're not growing prolifically. And, but it's people have just now, like they want everything like very packaged, simple, ready to go. But a tomato's ready to go. An avocado is ready to go, right? Squash is really ready to go. Very easy. Olive oil, butter, cook it in the oven. I mean, there's so many things that are easy and convenient, all right, to make and in advance, all right? So,
Meal prep.
really good hamburger patties, okay? You can make those in advance, and that can be a breakfast or a lunch, all right? So, so people we have to teach them, that's our thing is we always are teaching them how to do this and how to make that change. So
It's not impossible. And so that's why I think another reason I liked your Instagram stuff is this is a bunch of busy doctors, yet everyone took time to make their meal, right? And they brought it. And
right.
People think it's impossible. They're like, oh, well, you don't know. You don't have kids. You have kids. It's not impossible at all.
No, it isn't impossible. It's like, what are your priorities in life? Now, I have to say that all of our practitioners, they live to excellent standards, every single one of them. Okay. And I always tell my practitioners, you are setting the model for your family and for your patients. So if you're not healthy, the patient knows that. They know that. People can look at it anyway. So I don't want an unhealthy person taking care of me, right? You want a person who lives in according with those rules of life that I tell people, the rules and laws of Mother Nature, okay, they are what they are. We didn't make them up. They are. We know them now. We just have to learn them and implement them. And so people think it's our way. No, this is the way it is. You can't change what Mother Nature has, implemented. If you look in nature, the way honeybees are, everything is. The animals, everything, if you examine them and how they live, they have these rules that they live by. And if they don't, something happens. So we need to follow, people always say rules. Well, rules in life, I tell people you're creating order. You have to create order in this biological system from the top down.
That's what we need to tell people. And yeah, the nature thing, it's like some people can get away with it for a while, but like,
Yes.
and I'll repeat it. Everything in modern society is working against you, working against nature. So you need to just reject it all, learn it. I also say it's not harder once you get there. It's just hard to make the change, right?
Right. Well, it's a decision. You're right.
Well,
It's
yeah,
a decision.
no one wants to make the change. But then if you, okay, picture yourself in 6 months later when you are eating a nice grass-fed steak and you have amazing sweet potatoes on the side and you have this beautiful thing. You're not like, oh, where's my Cheerios? Where's my Lucky Charms? You're enjoying it. The hard part is deciding that you're going to change and disrupting your daily habits, right?
Right. And people, when they change, they always go, oh my God, I'm not hungry. I had a patient yesterday who was just recently diagnosed with colon cancer. And she was 40 or 50 pounds overweight. As soon as she got the diagnosis, of course, which is typical, they immediately change their eating and get healthy and do all the stuff. Okay. And for me, the way I do it with every patient, I look at their blood test, I look at their life, I look at the cancer, and then I design the best eating program. So if you're diabetic or pre-diabetic, then we gotta go this way. Mm-hmm. All right. And so I customize. But if you have a leukemia, a lymphoma, you need to eat this way. So there's not one size fits all for every single person. And so this patient was telling me yesterday that she's lost like 50 pounds since her diagnosis. And it was very interesting. She went to go get a colonoscopy, a routine colonoscopy. And she had a history of hemorrhoids. So I want to make a very big point here. So a lot of patients go in and think they just have hemorrhoids. And then the doctor does the exam and the doctor examines you and they can see the hemorrhoids. Okay. But what I'm a believer in now with my experience is no, let's make sure it's not something worse. Because that means you have a defect in your gastrointestinal system. A hemorrhoid is a ballooned vein. All right. And so that it's weak, right? And so that has to do with your eating, how you're going to the restroom, you're sitting too much, right? Like truck drivers have a high incidence of hemorrhoids because they're sitting. So
you also eat trash, but yes, keep going.
Yeah, that's true. But I know I used to do a radio show for once a week it was just for basically targeted at truck drivers, but they all learned how to, and in the show, they learned how to carry their own food and everything. It was great. But anyway, but you need to make sure a doctor can do an exam, but that's just looking on the outside. They can easily order other tests like the Cologuard and say, let's just make sure. So this patient had hemorrhoids, and then they did the colonoscopy, and they found a 2.5 centimeter polyp. All right. So I tell people there's 25 millimeters in a centimeter. So it's about an inch. Mm-hmm. So the doctor removed it, and then they analyze it under the microscope. So they looked at it and they go, oh, there's a little piece of cancer on the polyp. So I talked to her and I said, well, hopefully when they do, when they look at you again, this is gone. So anyway, she came to see me because they can watch and wait. They can go in and remove what they call the square, which is a square around that area, and test it. And then he was going to well, if it's positive, we're going to remove like a third of your colon. I'm like, oh my goodness. Okay. So, it could have been very invasive. So when they went back in with an endoscopic ultrasound to look, the polyp was completely gone and it looked like a scar had formed. So it was really essentially nothing now. So I said, okay, we are going to create healing in your body. We're going to try to avoid surgery. The doctor's willing to wait and repeat a colonoscopy in a year. But I said, I am going to teach you to heal your body so you get rid of this on your own. Luckily, this is a very small situation and you've made dramatic changes. We're going to go the next step and we're going to put you on, all the targeted, supplements, not just supplements to be healthy, but anti-cancer herbs and supplements and, things to make the body alkaline, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So she was all for that because obviously no patient wants to go in and have invasive surgery on their colon. So anyway, so these kinds of things we need to be like, think what are all the possibilities? And luckily her doctor, even at Kaiser, I think she has Kaiser, they were willing to just observation. And then one thing I always do, because anything in the colon goes to the liver, Brian, I said, look, let's do imaging of your liver because they wanted to order a chest, abdomen, and pelvis CT. All right. Well, CT is 500 times the radiation of a chest X-ray. So she says, Dr. Connealy, what can we do? So I said, okay, I do believe you need to know what's going on in the rest of your body, but let me see if I can figure it out without doing that radiation. But again, I order CT scans of the whole body and PET scans, Brian. I'll tell you, we have to understand the landscape of the disease. And let me give you an example. I had a young girl come in from Idaho, breast cancer, darling, 35-year-old, 3 precious children. She came here because she had a breast lump and a lymph glands, and she wanted to talk to me about everything, what she should do before she has the surgery. So the surgeon already talked to her about her surgery and what they would do. And so I said, well, I feel like we need to do a PET scan before we examine. She goes, well, I don't want to do a PET scan. And I said, okay, if you don't want to do a PET scan, let's do a whole body MRI. So whole body MRI is new technology without gadolinium. It doesn't use any dyes. So what happened is she did the whole body MRI and it was all in her bones. So then what that means is you can't do surgery. Okay. So it changed the trajectory of her treatment plan based upon that information. So the lady I had yesterday, the 31-year-old, they fortunately, when they diagnosed her triple negative, they immediately did a PET scan. So because you got to know the landscape. Is this a little lump or is this somewhere else in the body? So the CT scan for the, colon cancer lady, we're going to take a conservative measure right now, do an abdominal ultrasound, maybe do a CT scan, because what they want to do is order a CT scan on a real regular basis, but that's radiation. So what I always do is I give the patients detox baths with clay, because clay detoxes radiation and other heavy metals and everything, and I have them do Epsom salts and baking soda. Then I give them something called superoxide dismutase. Superoxide dismutase is your normal production of an enzyme that helps get rid of garbage, especially radiation. They use this in Chernobyl. So I have them do that. And I usually have them do coffee enemas because you want to keep that liver clean. Not always coffee enemas, because like this patient, everybody's different, because some people, I can't do coffee enemas, but I do some kind of liver cleanse. It might be castor oil packs, oral liver flushes, whatever. Again, you have to, everybody's an N of one, okay? And so everybody's protocol is going to be different based upon their, their entire, puzzle of how their situation it appears. So we got to make decisions based upon what's going on with each patient. So, so we have to just really be thinking if we have to do drugs, invasions, scans, whatever, we just got to do the protective measures so the patient can withstand the whole treatment protocol.
It's so important. So important. And we have to go, or you have to go in a few minutes. I want to see if we can tie in some germ versus terrain stuff and the fact that people always have cancer cells in their body, right? Like people, is it going to grow or is it going to just your body going to take care of it?
Right, exactly. So you're right. We make cancer cells. So we either have an amazing immune system, we have something in our body called apoptosis. That's programmed cancer cell death. So that switches on all the time if our body has the right terrain. So, years ago, all these different microbiologists said, oh, it's the bug, and we just got to kill the bug. But now we all know it's the terrain, it's the garden of the cell. All right. So it's what's inside the cell and what's around the cell. And so we have to change the garden of the cell. So I tell people, if you don't change how this cancer appeared, whatever surgery, whatever chemo, whatever radiation you're doing, which are injurious immunosuppressive treatments, you will just make things worse for your terrain. And everything is the terrain, whether it's a bug, cancer, viruses, anything else. It's all about how healthy is your terrain.
It's so important. Well, I mean, my crowd, we ran around, we didn't do anything different for the past 2.5 years, and nothing happened because we had good terrain. You know what I mean? Like,
That's right. That's right. You had good defense mechanisms, and your body was happy and taking care of you.
that's the name of the game. I think we laid out enough info for people to figure that out and what to do. And if they know anyone, send them your way. Can you tell us your website and everything again?
Yeah. So the Instagram is Connealy MD. The Cancer Center for Healing is the Cancer Center, so cancercenterforhealing.com. And for human optimization and other chronic illnesses, it's centerfornewmedicine.com. And then I have a book, Cancer Revolution. I'd recommend anybody to read those. People come in much more prepared if they read the book.
That's great. I'm just thinking, I'm just sad because I lost my dad to prostate cancer. And I remember back then I didn't know anything about health. And then I remember him reading all these like vegan books. It's like people just always go this like plant-based diet route. And it's just so sad.
Well, they don't realize the nutrient deficiencies caused from a plant-based diet. And I'll tell you this quick little story. I remember I had this super healthy little young lady, beautiful girl, and she had lymphoma. I did a NutriEval, and she had looked the worst NutriEval. And I'm like, she's like the perfect eater, perfect herbs, tinctures, plants, everything. And I said, so this is a classic example of how that didn't serve her.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm trying to spread that word too. Don't get caught up in this plant-based agenda. It's not a human diet. And well, I got to let you go. Thank you so much. This was so great. And do you have anything else? Just any closing words?
No, just let's all keep growing and helping each other be the best we can be.
And you said community is a guru of the future. I saw that somewhere. I love that.
Yes.
I love that. That's a good closing thing. Thank you so much. And maybe we'll do another one.
All right. Thank you, Brian. I appreciate it.